You are lying still now, your body settling into the quiet of night. The blanket covers your shoulders like the earth once wrapped herself around the lives she carried. Your breath slows, matching the soft rhythm of a world turning in silence. Above you, the stars shine like pinholes in the sky's deep fabric, older than anything you will ever touch, but always near. And somewhere, in the hush between those stars and your skin, there is a story. Not of a person, but of something far older. Something larger. You feel it begin, not as a voice, but as a presence. A hush that hangs in the space where footsteps used to fall. You imagine a shape, tall, shaggy, steady. A woolly mammoth. She is not here, but she once was. Her kind walked where cities now hum. She drank from rivers that now sleep beneath concrete. And when she called out into the snow, her voice rolled like thunder across the open cold. She is gone, but not forgotten. Extinction is not just the end of a life. It is the dimming of a song. A note that played once, echoing through time, and then, quiet. You breathe in slowly, sensing that quiet. It wraps around the earth like fog. It lingers in the bones buried deep beneath tundra. It hums in amber, in fossils, in feathered impressions pressed into ancient stone. Every lost creature leaves behind a kind of fingerprint, not just on the land, but in the loops of DNA, in echoes of memory we did not even know we held. The mammoth's world was not like yours. It moved with ice and wind. Herds moved slowly, their shadows long over the frost. Each footstep packed the ground tighter, shaping the land beneath them. But slowly, so slowly, their numbers thinned. The world warmed. The grass changed. And one by one, their silence grew. But the silence did not erase them. The bones remained. Thus, the frozen hair. Pieces of their story held inside the earth, suspended like secrets in the cold. And now you wonder, could the silence ever speak again? Your mind drifts, not in dreams but in quiet imagining. What if extinction is not always final? What if, hidden inside frozen remains, tucked within the code of ancient cells, there is still a whisper of life? A thread not fully severed but sleeping? Science listens to those whispers now. You may have heard of it, CRISPR, a word that sounds like frost but holds fire. It is a tool, a method. But more than that, it is a key. A way to open locked rooms in the house of life, to read the old instructions, to fill in what is missing. It is not magic. It is not fantasy. It is precise, quiet, deliberate. And in the hands of those who listen closely, it might one day allow us to bring back what once was lost. Not just in stories, but in steps, in breath, in soft mammoth fur rustling beneath Arctic wind. You lie still now, feeling the weight of time above you and beneath. You are small in this story, but you are not outside it. Everything that lives shapes the world. Everything that dies changes it too. But for the first time in history, a new question rises. Could we, the living, help the dead walk again? The mammoth's journey may not be over. The end might not be an end at all, but a pause. A breath held. And somewhere in a frozen cell, part of her still waits. Tonight, as your body rests and your thoughts drift like snow, you begin to follow her story, not backward, but forward. Through history. Through genes curled like sleeping ferns. You will walk with scientists and cells, with memory and meaning, through the quiet forest of what might be possible. The stars above have seen extinction. And they have seen return. You close your eyes. And in that gentle darkness, something begins to stir. Not loud. Not bright. Just a quiet question. You are floating now, not through space, but inward. Deeper and smaller, into the fabric of what makes life itself. There is no sound here, not really. Just a soft hum. A cellular rhythm. The quiet breath of your own body at the smallest scale. Imagine a spiral, twisting, elegant, endless. A double helix. It is not large, yet inside it lives the blueprint of every tree, every whale, every mammoth that ever walked the earth. This is DNA. You have heard the word before, perhaps in passing. But now it opens for you, like a scroll, like a lullaby in code. Every living thing you have ever known carries this quiet script inside them. And the alphabet? It has only 4 letters, A, T, C, and G. Simple letters. But in their arrangements, the possibilities unfold like galaxies. They form the shape of your hands. They shape the curve of a tusk. They remember how to build muscle, for heartbeat, breath. And they do not forget easily. DNA is coiled so tightly, it can fit meters of instruction inside something so small you cannot see it. It hides inside your cells, inside the cells of a bird in flight, inside a seed asleep in the ground. It waits. And when the time is right, it sings. You picture it now, this helix glowing gently, winding like a staircase inside every cell. And you begin to understand, all life is built from the same thread. Your DNA shares echoes with a mushroom, with a dog, with a woolly mammoth that has not walked for thousands of years. Life does not reinvent the alphabet every time, it just tells new stories with it. The mammoth story is still written, deep inside her remains. Frozen hair, preserved bones, mummified flesh, they still hold DNA, fragile but present. Time has tried to erase the ink, but not all of it. Scientists, gentle as archaeologists of the invisible, extract what is left. They gather tiny fragments. Some are broken. Some are smeared with time. But together, with patience, they begin to reassemble the script. It is like finding torn pages of an ancient book and trying to guess what the missing words were, based on rhythm, on repetition, on the structure of life itself. And once that script is known, even in part, a question forms in the dark. What if we could rewrite it? That is where CRISPR enters your thoughts, not with a bang, but with a brushstroke. CRISPR is not loud. It does not look like a machine. It is a tool found in nature, borrowed from bacteria that once used it as a weapon, a memory of viruses. Now we have adapted it. We use it not to defend, but to edit. Imagine you are holding a pen made of molecules. With it, you can snip a letter out of DNA. You can replace it. You can even add something entirely new. It is not easy, but it is real. And in the hands of those who study with care, CRISPR becomes a way to finish old stories. You return to the mammoth. Her DNA is not whole. But the elephant, her living cousin, holds most of the same script. The parts that are missing in the mammoth can sometimes be found there. And with CRISPR, you can take the elephant's genome and slowly, gently, begin to modify it. You can switch certain genes to match what once was. You can reawaken traits that have long gone quiet. Fur for warmth. Fat for the cold. Tusks that curve like time itself. It is not resurrection, not quite. But it is close. And suddenly, the double helix does not seem like a thread anymore. It is a bridge. You cross it now, between species, between centuries. From what was lost, toward what could be possible again. This chapter of science is written not in test tubes, but in wonder. It asks a new kind of question. If life is a language, then who holds the pen? You float in that question now, calm, weightless, listening to the gentle pulse of possibility. You are not rushed. Nothing in nature hurries. A seed waits years to bloom. A cell divides when the moment is right. And somewhere, under layers of ice and history, the mammoth story is curling back toward warmth. You settle into stillness, the spirals of DNA drifting slowly around you like constellations of life. And just before sleep takes your thoughts into deeper waters, you wonder, softly, curiously. You are smaller now, smaller than breath, smaller than light drifting through your eyelids. You are inside the body of a cell, hovering gently above its intricate world. There is no chaos here, no noise. Only calm. Only purpose. The walls pulse faintly. Ribosomes churn like tiny factories, building proteins one careful bead at a time. Mitochondria hum with stored sunlight, energy born from long-dead stars. And in the quiet center, you find the nucleus, The library. The keeper of instructions. Inside, DNA sleeps, tightly wound, like a ribbon tucked into a shell. It carries memory, design, identity. But even here, in this gentle spiral, there are flaws. A single letter wrong, and a body may not form the way it was meant to. A tiny deletion, and a cell may lose its rhythm. Nature writes with beauty, but not always with precision. That is where CRISPR begins. You do not feel it arrive. No sharp edges, no clang of tools. It glides into the nucleus like a whisper. CRISPR is a molecule made of two parts, a guide and a cutter. The guide is a seeker, holding a sequence of RNA that knows exactly where to go. It is like a GPS for the genome, searching, matching, slowing when it senses home. You follow it. The molecule hovers over a strand of DNA. And then, like a breath held, it recognizes the pattern. That is the site. The cutter moves next. It does not destroy. It opens. A tiny snip. A break in the chain. And suddenly, the cell pays attention. It does not panic. It begins to repair, because that is what life does. But this time, something is different. Scientists can guide the repair. They can insert a new piece. They can rewrite the sentence. You watch as a single gene, one word in a vast instruction manual, is gently replaced. Not erased. Not forced. Rewritten. It is delicate work. Like repairing lace with invisible thread. Like replacing one note in a lullaby, so softly the melody does not falter. This is the power of CRISPR. And in this moment, you realize something. CRISPR is not just a tool. It is a choice. It gives us a way to intervene in the oldest language we know. To correct diseases. To undo mutations. To even imagine the return of what was once gone. Your thoughts drift back to the mammoth. Her DNA was broken, scattered. But with CRISPR, you begin to imagine stitching it back together, one base pair at a time. Imagine altering an elephant embryo. Imagine carefully inserting mammoth genes, thick hair, cold-adapted blood, curved tusks, subcutaneous fat. Traits that once danced through permafrost can be made to stir again. This is not cloning. It is editing. It is not resurrection. It is recreation. And as you drift deeper into the thought, you begin to wonder, what else might we change? If we can correct a disease, could we enhance a body? Could we edit height? Strength? Memory? Could we change not just one life, but a lineage? You float in this sea of questions, unafraid, but aware. CRISPR is precise, but it is still new, and the places it can take us are not always known. Do you feel its promise? A tool small enough to fit in a molecule, yet powerful enough to shape a species. The scalpel hums quietly in the dark. It is not a tool of war. It is not a tool of haste. It is a tool of possibility. You return to your still body, your resting breath. Outside your window, the stars remain unchanged. But inside, you feel the future curling gently into the present. And as your mind softens toward sleep, you wonder. You are standing at the edge of something ancient. Not a ruin, not a monument, but a cold and silent graveyard made of time. Beneath your feet lies frozen ground, hard as marble, older than memory. This is the permafrost, Earth's freezer, the place where history never fully dies. It waits, and as you walk, a curve breaks the snow. Smooth, ivory-colored, cracked with age. A tusk. You kneel beside it. You touch it gently. It is not warm, but it is not lifeless either. Inside this fragment lies more than bone. It holds a ghost, not of spirit, but of information. The woolly mammoth is gone, but pieces of her remain deep within these relics. Inside frozen marrow, ancient hair, the hollow of teeth, tiny spirals of DNA still linger. Not whole, not fresh, but present. Time has not been kind. Thousands of years have chipped away at the code. Heat and light and microbes have fractured the genome, like a book left out in the rain. You imagine it now. Pages missing, ink faded, letters smudged into one another. But some words remain legible. Some sentences almost intact. And scientists, like literary detectives, begin to reconstruct. They use computers now, tools to piece together fragments. They search for overlap, for patterns, for echoes. Sometimes the same gene appears in different bits, like a recurring verse in a forgotten song. And bit by bit, the sequence begins to emerge. But there are holes. Some stretches of the genome are lost. You float deeper into the scene, into a laboratory glowing soft with screens and quiet voices. Here, a researcher holds a vial no bigger than a raindrop. Inside, mammoth DNA curls like smoke. Fragile, but not without voice. To fill the missing pieces, they look to the elephant, the closest living relative. Not identical, but close enough. Like a cousin who still remembers the lullaby you once sang together. You watch as geneticists compare the two, the elephant's genome and the partial mammoth code. They align them, highlight the differences. Where a gene is missing in the mammoth, they look to the elephant. Where the mammoth had a trait, thick fur, cold-adapted blood, they note the exact instructions that gave it form. You realize now, to bring back what was, you must know exactly what was lost. Not just the shape, but the instructions that shaped it. And in the missing lines of that code, you find the most haunting silence. Because even with CRISPR, even with sequencing tools, we cannot guess at everything. Some details may be gone forever. A pigment, a scent, a behavior shaped by generations of ice. The ghost in the genome does not scream. It whispers. It leaves clues. It waits to be understood. And still, the scientists listen. They do not promise resurrection. They speak instead of de-extinction, a path that walks alongside memory, not back into it. Their goal is not to recreate the mammoth perfectly, but to create something close. An elephant-mammoth hybrid, with the traits that mattered most for life in the cold. You imagine it. An elephant, born in warmth, carrying inside her the echoes of ice. And one day, a calf steps into the world, with small ears, with thick, rust-colored fur, with a shape that memory almost recognizes. A ghost brought not back from the dead, but forward from the past. You lie still, your breath quiet. Around you, the cold feels less like absence, more like potential. What other ghosts might live inside genes? What other songs are waiting to be heard again? The genome does not forget easily. And when we learn to read its whispers, we do not just touch the past. We carry it forward. And now, as the snow settles softly around the tusk, you're walking now, barefoot, slow, across warm earth. The ground is soft beneath your soles, and the air smells of green things. Before you, an elephant moves like a mountain, heavy, silent, sacred. Her skin is thick and lined like ancient bark. Her ears, wide and gentle, flick away flies with quiet grace. She is large, but not loud. And as you follow her, you begin to understand. She is not the past. She is the thread that leads you back to it. This is the mammoth's cousin. Not just in appearance, but in blood, in bone, and in it. You reach out not to touch her, but to feel the closeness. Two species, thousands of years apart, and yet, their genomes are almost twins. The Asian elephant shares over 99% of its DNA with the woolly mammoth. That final fraction, less than a single percent, holds the traits the cold demanded. You picture it now, like a tapestry, elephant thread running steady and soft, mammoth thread woven through in patches of fur and frost. That is the vision, to take this living species and stitch into her the ancient code that once braved blizzards. But how? You return to the laboratory in your mind, a quiet place of blue lights and gloved hands. Here, scientists work not on whole creatures, but on cells, tiny, pulsing islands of possibility. They begin with induced pluripotent stem cells, Cells reprogram to become anything: skin, muscle, nerve, heart. From these, an embryo can form. They extract these cells from an elephant. Then, using CRISPR, they begin the editing. One gene at a time. They introduce mammoth traits. TRPV3 for temperature sensing. LEPR for fat metabolism. Hair keratin genes for thick fur. Hemoglobin variants to bind oxygen in icy air. Each change is precise, measured, deliberate, and slowly, cell by cell, a new instruction book is written. Not pure mammoth, not pure elephant, but something in between. A mammophant, they sometimes call it, a bridge between species, a revival of traits, not souls. You drift around the embryo now, tiny as a dewdrop, but filled with ancient instructions. It does not look like anything yet, just a cluster of cells, but inside, the genes whisper of snow. Still, questions rise like mist. Where will this embryo grow? Elephants carry their young for nearly 2 years. Their wombs are warm, slow, and sacred. But pregnancy is not gentle work. The risks are great. And to implant an edited embryo is to ask the living to carry the unknown. Some scientists explore artificial wombs, womb-like machines that mimic the flow of nutrients, the rhythm of life. Others prepare elephant mothers, hoping biology will accept what editing has made. You pause here in this moment, between creation and consequence, between past and present, because to rebuild the mammoth is not only to bring her body back, it is to ask, where will she live? What will she eat? Who will teach her how to be? You think of language passed from mother to calf, of routes remembered through generations, of snow learned through touch and trial. Can an elephant teach a mammoth what it means to belong to the cold? And yet, science does not promise perfection. It promises possibility. And this possibility is stirring now, inside modified cells, inside your quiet thoughts. To rebuild with pieces of the living is to carry forward memory in motion. It is to write new stories with borrowed ink. You are still now, still enough to feel the pulse of thought beneath the quiet, still enough to listen to the questions that stir in silence. In the center of a lab, under low light and high hope, an embryo rests. It is no larger than a lentil, yet it holds the weight of centuries. Cells divide without rush. The future unfolds, one breathless flicker at a time. This is not a fossil, not a simulation. It is real, living, edited, beating forward with the rhythm of a long-extinct song. For now, you must ask, where will it grow? Because every embryo needs a home, a place of warmth, of heartbeat, of shelter and space. And for now, that place must be an elephant. You picture her standing still in the golden light. Massive, wise-eyed, her skin thick, but her soul sensitive. She does not know of genomes or labs, but her body carries the knowledge of life. To ask her to carry a mammoth calf is to ask everything. Her pregnancy will stretch nearly 2 years. Her body will change, slowly and constantly. Her energy will nourish something both familiar and foreign. And all the while, she will not know what stirs inside her is ancient, modified, built from pieces of another time. You sit with that weight. Science can reach across centuries, but it cannot do so without asking someone else to carry the bridge. And so the question unfolds wider. Is it fair to ask a living being to bear the burden of extinction? You drift through conversations now, not in the lab, but in quiet rooms. Philosophers, animal ethicists, conservationists, voices layered in thought and caution. Some say, this is unnatural, too much, too far. Others whisper, but extinction, that was unnatural too. It came too soon, often by our hands. Should we not try to mend what we broke? The debate does not end. It expands, because the embryo is not just a life. It is a symbol of what we can do, of what we dare do. There are other paths too. Artificial wombs, Machines that mimic the slow dance of gestation. Fluid-filled chambers, monitored by sensors, warmed by intention. Still experimental. Still uncertain. But possible. Some say this is the answer. No burden mother. No risk to an elephant's health. Just technology humming quietly. But others ask, can a machine give comfort? Can it replicate a heartbeat heard from the inside? Can it offer the subtle guidance of a living presence? You feel yourself floating in the middle. Not in judgment, but in reflection. Because the deeper you move into this dream, the clearer it becomes. Science is not just about answers. It is about questions that stay with us. And this question, how to carry forward a life once lost, touches more than biology. It touches the moral thread that runs through all creation. You imagine the calf now, half-formed, half-myth, curled inside a body not its own, or inside a chamber crafted by code. Will it feel safe? Will it feel loved? Does it matter if it survives? You let these questions pass through you, like wind over snow. No need to grasp them yet. Just let them settle. Because this part of the journey is not just about genetics. It is about care. About how we welcome the past into the present. You breathe slowly. The embryo continues to pulse. And all around, the air hums with waiting. You press your palm gently to the unknown. Warm, trembling real. You walk slowly now through the hushed corridors of a future that does not yet exist. The air is thick with trees. Branches arch above you like ribs, filtering soft, dappled light onto a trail pressed into the soil. You feel it beneath your feet, loose, earthy, rich with life. But something else moves here too. A shape. Silent. Watching you from a distance. You are not in the wild, exactly. And you are not in a zoo either. You are somewhere in between. A place imagined for what cannot be fully free. A sanctuary. A rewilded park. A space crafted for life that does not fit in the world as it is, but might fit in the world we shape around it. This is where the mammoth might one day walk. Not alone. Not on display. But within a carefully designed landscape. A simulation of the cold plains she once called home. You pause at the edge of a clearing. Beyond it, a creature stands. Its back is broad, fur matted in clumps of auburn and frost. Tusks curve from its head like ancient commas. It turns. It sees you. And for a moment, the line between history and hope vanishes. But then the glass becomes visible. A nearly invisible barrier separating you from her. You realize this world is controlled, fenced, monitored, built to mimic the wild, but not quite wild itself. This is the dilemma. Where will we place the beings we bring back? Not just physically, but ethically? Zoos of the past were cages, steel bars, lonely concrete enclosures. But today they are changing, slowly, into spaces of conservation, education, care. Still, can they ever be enough for something born from extinction? You imagine a mammoth, born into a world that cannot remember how to greet her. She does not know migration. She does not know herd calls carried over ice. She knows only what we give her. Trees instead of tundra. Boundaries instead of blizzards. She is safe, perhaps. But is she home? You continue walking. In this imagined space, other animals begin to appear. Some are familiar, deer, foxes, cranes. Others are from stories. A giant sloth reaching for leaves. A small, striped quagga grazing at water's edge. A passenger pigeon lifting into slow-motion sky. Not real. Not yet. But possible. CRISPR offers more than the return of the mammoth. It tempts us with many ghosts. But with each revival comes the same question. Where will they go? Releasing them into today's wild could be dangerous. For them and for the ecosystems that have moved on. Introducing a species into a world no longer shaped for it is not revival. It might be displacement. That is why the zoo becomes more than a space. It becomes a philosophy. Will we build safe places? Not just to display, but to honor? To let creatures be, not props, but beings. Not experiments, but participants in a new kind of life? You arrive at the end of the path. Before you, the mammoth lies down in the tall grass. She curls her trunk. She closes her eyes. She is not aware of the world watching her. She only knows the rhythm of her breath. And suddenly you feel it. This is not just about science. It is about responsibility. To bring something back is not just to give it life. It is to give it meaning. And now, as you turn to leave, your footsteps slow with thought. What kind of world are we creating? For the creatures we call forward? And if we must build them a place, should it be a mirror of what was? Or something entirely new? You leave the forest, but a part of you stays behind, walking quietly beside her, still wondering. You stand now in the wind. It whistles low, brushing across a vast open plain. The land stretches in every direction, empty, yet not lifeless. Low grasses ripple like whispers. The ground beneath your feet is frozen, though the air carries hints of warmth. This is the tundra, and it is waiting, not for snow, not for sun, but for a weight that has been missing for thousands of years. The mammoths wait. Long ago, this land was not still. It trembled under the tread of herds, heavy-footed, wool-wrapped beings that moved in rhythm with the cold. Their tusks cleared snow. Their feet packed soil. Their grazing shaped the pattern of plants. And then they were gone. Not all at once, but steadily, quietly, like a breath being held too long. And when they left, the land began to change. You kneel now, touching the soil. It is soft, too soft. Without the mammoths trampling, snow settles differently. Grass grows in patches it never knew. Trees creep in slowly from the edges, changing how the earth stores warmth. The permafrost, long locked in cold, begins to loosen, and with it, a hidden danger. Trapped beneath its surface are ancient gases, carbon methane, released as the ice thaws. Invisible but powerful, they rise into the sky, warming it ever so slightly, and hastening the thaw even more. It is a loop, a quiet unraveling. And now, some scientists ask a question. That sounds almost like fiction. Could mammoths help stop the melting? You pause. Not because it is a wild idea, but because it might not be. Reintroducing large, cold-adapted herbivores, mammoths or their hybrids, could change the land again. By grazing down shrubs, they would make way for grasses. By packing snow, they would help keep the soil cold. By roaming wide, they would spread nutrients and patterns that once kept the tundra breathing. It is not about restoring beauty. It is about restoring balance. This idea has a name: Pleistocene rewilding, a dream of healing ecosystems by reintroducing lost keystone species. In parts of Siberia, a place called Pleistocene Park has already begun. Horses, musk oxen, bison roam a fenced zone of tundra to see how their movement changes the land, how their presence slows the thaw. You imagine adding mammoths to that rhythm. You imagine a plain filled again with thudding footsteps, with bodies made for snow, not just returning a species, but restoring a system. So you hesitate, because ecosystems are complex. They do not always welcome change, even when that change feels like memory. The tundra of today is not the tundra of 10,000 years ago. Temperatures have shifted. Predators are gone. Plants have adapted. Even the microbes in the soil have changed their tune. To reintroduce mammoths is to send ripples through an unfamiliar pond. What if the balance tips the wrong way? What if, in reviving one harmony, we disrupt another? You rise slowly, brushing frost from your hands. The land is quiet, but it is not blank. It has been surviving, and survival, too, deserves respect. So, there is something powerful in the idea that restoring a species might also restore a rhythm, that the land and the life that once shaped it could find each other again. You close your eyes. The wind carries your thoughts across centuries. You hear distant footfalls, feel tremors in the ground, not just of mammoths, but of possibility. A living being is not separate from its home. It is part of it, a thread in a living quilt. You enter a room with no walls, no doors, just silence and light. Strings of code float around you like glowing sheet music. I see the notes of biology's quiet melody. They pulse softly, suspended in the dark, endless in variation, beautiful in pattern. You are inside a cell again, but this time you do not feel small. You feel reverent, as if you've stepped into a sacred hall, where the language of life is written as song. To alter even one line of this melody is not a task of speed or strength. It is the act of a composer. This is the role of CRISPR now. Not just as a scalpel, not just as a pen, but as a conductor in nature's great orchestra. It does not create from nothing. It tunes what already plays. You listen to the rhythms of development, cells dividing in time, hormones released on cue, tissues rising like crescendo and pause. Everything in the body is part of a musical unfolding. But you begin to wonder, what happens when we rewrite a section? What if we raise the tempo in one place? Or replace one instrument with another? A gene for cold resistance, a gene for fur density, a gene for compact ears. One change at a time, the mammoth is brought closer to form. But in this careful rearranging, what else might shift? You drift closer to a specific gene, one that controls blood oxygen affinity. It hums steadily, shaped by millennia of frost. Yet nearby, another gene waits, silent. It influences temperament, social bonding, fear response. We do not always know how far the echoes reach. Changing one trait may ripple outward, touching behaviors, interactions, even emotions. The genome is not a piano. You do not press one key and hear one note. You press a key, and a chord rings. Some parts loud, others quiet, some so deep you feel them more than hear them. This is what it means to play nature's composer, to balance intention with humility, to understand that every edit is a verse in a longer song. We may not fully understand. You think of the mammoth calf, still unborn, built from fragments of past and present, carrying genes not tested by today's world. Will it walk confidently, as if stepping into remembered snow? Or will it struggle, its instincts mismatched to the world outside? You cannot be sure. And yet the music continues. Because even when uncertain, science does not freeze. It listens. It observes. It adjusts. You remember that first melody? The original mammoth genome, imperfect and ancient. And now you hear it blended with the living score of the elephant. Together they make something new. Not discord, not harmony, but possibility. Still, every composer must ask, why am I writing this song? For curiosity? For healing? For legacy? The answer matters. Because technology does not choose its purpose. People do. You leave the chamber slowly, the strings of DNA fading behind you like starlight. They're not gone, only waiting for the next listener. Outside, the world is quiet again. But your thoughts continue their slow hum. You have seen what it means to edit life. Not only the promise, but the responsibility. You are there when it happens. Not as a scientist, not as a spectator, just as someone standing quietly in the room, a witness to the first breath of something once lost. The light is low, not dramatic, not staged, just soft enough to let the moment unfold on its own. Inside a temperature-controlled chamber, the calf exhales. The air is warm, visible for only a moment, before dissolving into silence. And that is how it begins. No trumpet, no announcement, only breath, and the faint, rhythmic sound of a heart that should not, by nature's timeline, still be beating. You move closer, She is small for now, but already heavy with memory. For like copper snowfall, still damp from the birth process, clings to her back in gentle whirls. Her trunk lifts, uncertain, tasting air that has not held her scent in millennia. You do not touch her. You only watch. And in watching, you feel something open. This is the moment the project whispered about. The reason for the frozen cells, the editing, the long hours in artificial wombs and worried minds. She is here, breathing. But dreams, once awake, are not always what we expect. The calf does not understand extinction. She does not know she was designed. She does not know the snow that once welcomed her kind. She only knows this moment, this breath, this light. You step outside. The world is still turning. The wind still moves the trees. Nothing in the sky announces what has changed, but something has. The line between what is natural and what is possible has shifted. You think of others now, the elephants that came before her, the scientists who stayed up long nights, the philosophers who warned and wondered. You think of ecosystems she may shape, of children who might see her and believe in second chances, of stories rewritten because one cell survived the cold. But most of all, you think of her, not as a project, not as a replica, as a being. She stretches now, takes a slow step. Her legs wobble, but she stands. The researchers watch through glass. They cheer quietly, not for themselves, but for the idea that this was even possible. You wonder if she dreams, if her mind will hold instincts she cannot name, memories written into her muscles, by ancestors she never met. Will she one day walk the tundra, not as a shadow, but as part of a living herd? Will she know her name, or choose her own? You look again. She blinks, and in her gaze is not the past, but the future. You realize now, this is not resurrection. This is not a return. This is a beginning, a life made from fragments, but whole in its own right. She is not a copy. She is herself. And though science brought her here, what happens next will be shaped by care, by stewardship, by time. You walk away, leaving her to rest. She curls into hay, warm against the coolness of the world. Her breath is steady, present, and as you step back into the stillness of your own night, you carry her with you, not in science, but in story, a reminder that what was lost may not be gone forever if we learn to listen, to restore, and to hold new life gently in our hands. And just before sleep takes you, you whisper to yourself, not as a scientist, but as a soul, what else have we forgotten that might still be waiting to breathe again?